good? Hi everyone, Althany Good Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of the new James Ferraro EP, 4 Pieces for Mirai. This is the newest EP from multi-instrumentalist, composer, and producer Mr. James Ferraro, who I haven't covered on the channel in a while, not since my 2015 review of his album Skid Row, a conceptual and industrially tinged fusion of pop, alternative R&B, and sound collage, a unique and experimental ode to LA in the 1990s. I did not really care for the album myself, but if my description of that record does pique your interest, do give it a shot, you might dig it more than me. And do keep in mind that album is merely one sliver of James' very expansive discography, which he has been compounding furiously since the release of that album, with releases like Human Story 3 and Burning Prius, as well as Troll. A lot of releases that see James diving back into the world of sequenced MIDI instrumentation and feeling out some new age, modern classical, progressive electronic, and ambient music in the process. 4 Pieces is still very much in that same stylistic vein, but a lot darker and glitchier. This EP seems to feature a lot of the same futuristic themes that Human Story 3 did, but feels like a dystopian answer to the mostly utopian imagery of a perfect technocracy that a good portion of that album presented. Doesn't seem to be any kind of narrative connection between those two records though, although 4 Pieces does seem to have its own narrative, according to the Bandcamp page that James posted this project on, stating that this EP is merely just a prelude to a longer, more epic work about the decline of civilization in the information age. There are 4 major electronic music pieces on this record, which are bookended by 2 decent intros and outros that kind of set and finish the tone of the album very well. The intro track, Fossils, features a bunch of sounds from a variety of places. A phone that sounds like it's kind of ringing goes unanswered, crows cawing, eventually the sound is kind of submerged in water. There's also some lonesome keyboard arpeggios, what sounds like the internet booting up. I wish the compositional element of the track were a bit meatier, but the cut does convey a strong sense of desolation and emptiness. This is the conceptual landscape on which these compositions live. The core compositions that follow this intro are all really dense, multiple phases, no exceptions. The song Green Hill Cross features these icy, cascading synth tones. Then things start building up with some very nice arpeggios. The track blossoms into a composition of a variety of different synth timbres. It's layered beautifully. There's a sweet, glitchy mid-riff on the track 2 that's introduced by this shot of distortion. It's like for a moment the composition just degrades before your very ears. It breaks down and then shifts into a second movement where the main themes of the song thus far are revisited with some booming kick drums, some glistening pianos too. After years of working with these MIDI sounds, James has gotten a knack for working with them in such a way where not only does he embrace how cool and sterile they feel a lot of the time, but he has gained the ability to make them sound very expressive, evocative, and sometimes even larger than life. The song Butterfly has an intro that's colored with these huge gargantuan chords. They almost feel like a religious experience. The chord progression has almost like a medieval tone to it. The next phase has these plucky synth harps, some more subtle and ghostly synth tones kind of fading away and swelling in the background. It's almost as if James is composing this piece for a large-scale orchestra. The track eventually hits a stride with these sort of abrasive synth intervals that are almost like industrial. Eventually this builds up with these speedy bass melodies kind of flying by in every direction. It seems a little random for a moment, but the track does have a very cohesive finish. The song Mirai is one of the more tortured and despondent pieces on the EP. The thing is very cold, very exploratory, especially at the start. Eventually these runs of synthetic drums pop in. They hit hard, they're pretty dramatic. These monstrous gargling vocals kind of pop into the mix. It's like James is embracing a black metal aesthetic for a mere second. The amount of influences in electronic music, in traditional composition, and like extreme metal all popping up in this one section of song is just so overwhelming. It's crazy how many influences he's pulling from in this one spot, and typically influences that don't really ever have anything to do with each other. It makes me excited for what James might have coming down the pipe in this ongoing series, because will these genres return and in a bolder and bigger way. And I'm loving the numerous transitions on this track, as well as a lot of the other songs on here too. You know, James has been writing a lot of electronic compositions lately, and I have grown impressed with just how great he is getting at making these 8-minute monsters sound really logical and cohesive from start to finish, keeping things really engaging from an aesthetic standpoint, also a compositional standpoint. The song Remnant is okay. I find it to be one of the more uneventful compositions on the EP. Lots of very chimey, frigid synthesizers being played throughout the whole thing. The track feels like an ice age covering the earth, turning it into a lifeless tundra. It's consistently smooth. I just think maybe James could have added a little bit more to it compositionally, or could have gotten this same point across with a potentially shorter runtime. This is also another moment on the album where some of the chord progressions have a distinctly medieval tone. Gulf Gutters is kind of a strange ending to the EP in that it's one of the more vocally intensive tracks on the entire record. There's a good chunk of the song that sounds like James is kind of singing or screaming his way through some kind of digital matrix. He sounds like a ghost or a demon who's trying to break through a computer screen or through some kind of coaxial cable. Maybe he's playing the role of some kind of satanic malware. Of course, this vocal is placed over some very pristine, beautiful, ringing synth tones and what sounds like some plucky guitars, which might be synthetic as well. Another moment on the EP where I hear just a lot of interesting compounding influences brought together with some very compelling compositions. Overall, I think this is a pretty cool EP. I could see it being one of my favorite EPs of the year. I do wish there was a bit more to it, or rather, it just leaves me wanting more. It leaves me excited and kind of sitting on the edge of my seat for what the rest of this series is going to hold. Ferraro's approach to MIDI and soundplay on this thing is pretty refreshing, and I can't wait to see how he continues to push forward this dystopian concept he has drummed together on this record. I'm feeling a decent 2-strong 7 on this thing. Transition, have you given this EP a listen? Did you love it? Did you hate it? What would you rate it? You're the best, you're the best. What should I review next? Hit the like if you like, please subscribe, and please don't cry. Hit the bell as well. Over here next to my head is another video that you can check out. Hit that up or the link to subscribe to the channel. Anthony Fantano, James Ferraro, forever.